This week is Holy Week, the time between Palm Sunday and Easter Sunday, when Christians all around the world reflect on the profound tragedy, but also the profound joy that Jesus would have experienced during this week. It's that contrast between that suffering and the celebration that makes the final days leading up to the cross so eye-opening. He is welcomed one day as a king, then rejected a few days later. His disciples gathered around him at the Last Supper, only for them to scatter in fear when he was arrested in the garden. And he was hung to death on a criminal's cross, and then 3 days later, he rose triumphant over both sin and death. As we align our lives with the way of Jesus, it's important for us to remember that Jesus' life was filled with both suffering and celebration. It's a reminder that at the center of the gospel is the idea that both death and suffering are a necessary requirement for transformation and resurrection. The scriptures tell us that spiritual transformation comes, in part, through learning to patiently endure the trials and suffering of everyday life. In fact, in the book of James we read, "When all kinds of trials and temptation crowd into your lives, don't resent them as intruders, but welcome them as friends. Realize that they come to test your faith and to produce in you a quality of endurance." Embracing a rule of life means being intentional about celebrating. When we take time to celebrate, we exercise our ability to be able to see God's goodness in the most simple of gifts. Celebrating reminds us that we are more than our circumstances. And as the prophet Nehemiah said to his people who were in grief, "The joy of the Lord is our strength." We often live with the illusion that joy will come someday when conditions change. Political parties are elected, mandates lift, maybe you got a promotion at work. But true joy, that's joy that comes from God, is available regardless of our circumstances, even if we're in the thick of it. Joyfulness is actually a learned skill that comes through regularly responding and welcoming Jesus. One of the reasons why we see such an emphasis on feast days in the Old Testament is that times of feasting and celebration were meant to be transformative experiences, just like days of prayer, fasting, and meditation. As you reflect on the joys and sorrows of Holy Week, consider what rhythms you might need to adjust to create space for the Holy Spirit to use suffering and celebration as a transformative tool in your life.